everybody's having a great day. No trade calls, recommendations, or responsible norm stuff. 17th of October, 2023. So let's do this, guys. So I'm going to do a little bit of a short update or webinar. Let's see what's going on. It's probably going to be quite interesting for anybody who's here live who wants to ask any questions because essentially I just log back in when I send the email. Hey, Gamna, how's it going? And I've been massive power cut. So I have no idea what's going on. Haven't even been looking at Twitter on my mobile. So I really have no idea what's going on. So the only thing I can possibly comment on here are the technicals, how the market is moving and what's going on. Now, clearly, it looks like there was either some intervention, some kind of talk of intervention, some kind of shenanigans in USD JPY. As we've been mentioning, there's zero edge to trying to trade this. I mean, if I had to do, I'd expect this to ultimately trade lower and get ugly, but there's just no edge in trying to trade this, right? Really, really tricky trying to trade this. If you're looking across the board, it looks like, I hate to say, but just another little bit of a squeeze in equities, a little bit of these funky squeezes. Now, could it be something related to OPEX week? Probably, but you're getting a VIX smashed here, but really you're not seeing the usual follow through, right? With these kind of moves, if you trade higher and really get traction to the upside, you would expect to see a lot of the other stuff unwind, and it's not necessarily unwinding. So I think you have to be a little bit careful trying to chase the action here. Okay. Now, in terms of the bigger picture, Gavin, it's good to have you live. If you have any questions, even on the bigger picture, don't hesitate to ask. If you're looking at the bigger picture, I'd still go back to this basically Fangman chart. And I think this is really key, right? Now, again, keep in mind that with rates are 5, even though I believe rates are probably going higher, um, it's going to be hard for stocks to hold a sustained bid. Now we've got OPEX week, we've got earnings, but you have to be a little bit careful here. And if you're seeing what's happening today is everything is bid, but basically Amazon, Apple, Google, and Microsoft are red, right? That's quite interesting. If you go back and you look at this Fangman, it still looks like it's trying to hold this rotation to go lower into the 200-day moving average. And even if we see squeezes, Fangman, because of the weights, can't really hold the pump. It's going to be, every rally is probably going to be a sale. Now, you never want to short a dull market intraday. That's the best way to get in trouble. But here, I would continue to say, as we've been saying in the sessions, is likely a lot of people are getting excited here on any move, but unless we see this break above these highs or these lows, especially on a weak close basis, don't be confused with velocity of move inside range here because it could be ugly in terms of velocity, but it might not give us any real follow through. The thing here is that we're going sideways on highs. We're holding the series of higher lows, lower lows. And here, even though it's choppy, we're still kind of holding this rotation lower. So in terms of risk in general, you have to be a little bit careful. And we're seeing a lot of shenanigans, right? Now, the other thing, if you're looking at something like ES, it really looks like it's trying to coil, right? The big question is it a sustained coil or is it just, as we said, VIX OPEX week shenanigans? Hey, Saint, how's it going? And I'll go back to exactly what I said on the ES is you'll see a similar topic. Don't be confused by velocity of move inside range. Hey, welcome, man. I was just saying at the beginning, keep in mind, I haven't had access to anything until 5 minutes ago. So my view here is purely technical. I have no idea if what's going on, right? So it's also a good exercise because here I'm just really no possible bias because I have no idea. But here, what I would say is also don't be confused by the velocity of move inside this range. It's just a tactical, technical trade. So if we get a day close above that 50 back, these ES could easily accelerate into 4,500, but you're probably still not going to see it go knife through butter on the first test. If we break below the 10-day moving average, you're probably going to accelerate into that 200 DMA, right? Let me draw it differently. But you're probably not going to see it go knife through butter. Does that make sense? So here is you've got a lot of chop inside this range. On a day close, you might hit a brick wall here, selling. And on a flush below the 10-day, you might hit a brick wall of buying into the 200, right? So it's a very messy location, but that still offers a lot of intraday opportunity, right? And again, NASDAQ tying to coil, even though today all those Fangman names are red, still this descending trend line. But you see gold, it's not pulling off, right? Gold's not really reversing. Silver is not really reversing. DXY is trying to come back down, but what did we say on DXY? The easiest thing on DXY is look at the past 2 weeks, right? That's what we've been talking about. The high and the low. Don't be confused by velocity of move inside this range is the key message here. Okay. Now, and I'm discovering this with you live. What happened to Bund today? You see here, this is not a good sign, right? Remember we talked about it was leading the upside, but we said be careful because that's a sell zone. You see they're coming back down. They're selling it again to continue the downside action. UBs, ZBs, ZNs. So here the big question is this attempt to flush into OPEX? And here we see what you tend to call that H pattern, right? Fails double bottom and it'll rip back into here. ZNs fails at the double bottom and rips back higher. Or this could really get ugly, right? But you see, when you've got a situation where bonds are still heavy, right? Gold is still bid. You could have Middle East headlines hit at any time of the day. We've got Tesla, Netflix reporting tomorrow. Do you really want to go home max long overnight? I know I don't, right? I know I don't. So to me, the way I'm approaching today, I didn't have any possibility to trade. So I'm coming into the picture here. And the only thing I'm interested in either failures at highs or a chance to sell the close, right? That's what I'm looking at. Clearly, intraday, once you see ES take out the 4,400, it's fairly clear it's going to come back and try and take out yesterday's highs. But that's a very aggressive trade. Even if you have a stop below here, you don't have an awful lot of RR back into these highs. But you see this, if you had to get long, probably the YM long was a much nicer risk reward for a move back into the highs. Or Russell break of yesterday's highs for this flush back, because you see it's a huge air pocket here. But I don't think today, looking at it even now with hindsight, was a particularly easy trade with a lot of easy trades. I think if you're long ES here, if you're squeezing stupid, there's nothing wrong with holding partial ON, because you know that most of the gains, especially when it trades stupid, come from the overnight session. But you want to make sure you take some profits. Now, say what was the head? Did you follow what was the headline on USD JPY? Was it just a stop hunt or was it some kind of intervention? I mean, by the way, look at Bitcoin's just not moving, right? It's just as I said, yeah, it doesn't look good if it can't pump yesterday. Okay. See, that kind of proves my point. You get to a point here where I asked a couple of people, and a lot of people told me, I don't know, I wasn't USD JPY is nobody cares anymore, right? It's either untradeable. All the people who tried to trade it got killed. They're in the JGB graveyard, so nobody cares anymore. So that means there's a potential for even stupider moves that are really untradeable, right? Okay. Any comments, any questions, anything anybody's looking at? Yeah, again, here it's quite interesting that you're seeing that they're pumping a lot of stuff, but it's not okay. All the best, man. Yeah, it looks like power's all back. Had a mega power outage. Um, they had to do a bunch of stuff on the line, and then they couldn't. There's somebody that's I don't know, like 5K down the line, but has like somebody who's on life support at home, so they couldn't cut the line. They had to wait to send them a backup or something. So it's just a very complicated day. Yeah. Yeah, here it just feels like um, there's a lot of hanky panky going on into expiration and likely into the end of the week. Okay, cool. So that's why on these kind of days, you want to be a little bit cautious. I think exactly if you look at this, I think your first thought process is, I probably want to fade this. The second thought process is, how do I structure that trade? Because this could be stupid and up another percent. I mean, at the end of the day, it looks like a big move, but you know, Nasdaq is still red on the day, and ES is just up, not even 0.4, right? But I would say if the squeeze is starting, I have a hard time trusting the squeeze when I've got Amazon down on the day, Apple down on the day, Microsoft down on the day, AMD down on the day, Intel down on the day, Nvidia down almost 3.5% on the day. XLK is red. So those bonds are still heavy, right? They're trying to catch up, but they're still heavy. So it smells like a lot of, you know, stuff getting unwound, people getting stopped out, short-term money, right? And again, you have an awful lot of headline risk at any moment, right? So, and at the end of the day, we're still, even though you've had a pump, Russell is still below 1800. You've got a DR3 there. ES is still around that 4400. So I think here, in any case, I think it's hard to have a structural long term position that you're holding overnight over the weekend unless it's short. Or if you're still running longs, you need to have some kind of hedge. Or you're just looking at it technically, right? And like me coming into the day, as I said, I'm watching for failure for potential fades. And here it's starting to look nice, and maybe I don't know if you guys have noticed, but we've had intraday situation where we came when the market was ripping. You used to get the low of the day set into EU close or just after EU close, and then they start ramping it. So the question is, maybe let's see if they start right now as EU's going home, they put in a little bit of a high of the day and they start selling it. Because keep in mind, all of a sudden, a 1 hour negative close or some failure on Russell here, short stop above 1800, you've got very nice risk reward for a little bit of an unwind into yesterday's highs. If you get a 1 hour reversal on YM, a 1 hour reversal on ES here at yesterday's highs, those are very nice trades. Even on a 15-minute failure on ES. Why? Because you can short that with something like a 5-handle stop. If that sells off and closes the day below 4,400, you can hold that as an overnight position and you took very small risk. And you know that because these tend to be these stupid pumps can get unwound easily. Yeah, you get back below 4,400. This could easily unwind the pump back into day lows, right? And that means you're looking at potential 30, 40 handles with a five handles of risk or 10 handles of risk that if you set up as an overnight trade, could be a swing. You get a headline overnight, stuff goes ugly, you got yourself into the trade of the year for 5 handles. So to me, as I said, coming into today, it looks like there's a lot of wheeling and dealing. As I highlighted at the beginning of the session, I think there's a lot of velocity of move inside range, inside these areas. And that if you look at the action, you would not trust a pump like this. You would see it as a sell the rally because you have so many of the big FANG names still red, and AMD, NVIDIA red, NVIDIA down over 3.5%. They're still selling it. NVIDIA they're still selling it. Right? Now, again, at one point, it was down almost 8% today. I just noticed. I hadn't seen that. But they just does. It looks like it maybe there's some rebalancing going on here into tech earnings too. But I just find it very, very hard to get long-term bullish without some kind of catalyst. I would be more partial to sell strength that fails here. And that's the key thing, right, Gavin? It's sell strength that fails. That fails is the key part. You can't sell into strength. You can't sell into a stupid pump because you get run over. But the moment the pump fails, you can start to try to lay into it. And the interesting thing, because of the location, as I said before, these are kind of pumps that you can potentially get into with a tight stop, but they could set up as swings, right? Now, why? Let's look at that again in a little bit more detail. If you look at the ES on the daily, you see how we're at the top end of this chop range we highlighted. So even though this is very bullish and should break higher, just technically, especially if it closes today, if it stalls here, because this is a chop range, you're looking at, 3650, 4360, 4350 to the downside. And if that goes, hey, presto, you've got yourself another reversal for that move for very tight stop. So again, even though it's not a done deal, that's where the pot odds are. That's where the asymmetry is in terms of setup at this location, I feel. Okay. Any comments, any questions? Hey, have a great one. Has to be done. Have a great one. So here, if you're looking at ES, right, it really needs to get traction above these highs, because if not, you see how all these pumps have failed fairly spectacularly. So if indeed we close today above 4,400, it's a lot more constructive for the longs. But if we can't, it's just another pump, right? In any case, it should be interesting. But it's just the action just looks messy across the board. Like you see here how also you've got crude's kind of stuck, failing here, but getting no traction. You've got this complete round trip on CAD. I guess that was probably on some data, but Kiwi not doing much. By the way, incidentally, remember we said it filled that gap that was done. You've got Kiwi that filled the gap and it's kind of going lower still. You've got Aussie is trying to rotate higher. You have gold, it's going nowhere, stuck at highs. You've got yen, which is stuck at those highs, but round trip on CAD. Cable inside yesterday's range, not doing much. Euro trying to break out. Rip on Kiwi on Russell, but the other three indices pretty much. It's just not everything is not in sync. So you just have to be very, very careful here, not get yourself in trouble. And I can't stress this enough. This action is not in sync, is not something you chase. So that's pretty much what I'm looking at. And in terms of other trades, there may be a failure at DR3 later on Aussie. There may be a failure later on at DR3 on Euro. But I think what is really, really interesting is potential failures. Confluence 1800 DR3 on Russell, failure at yesterday's highs on YM, and failure at yesterday's highs on ES, and especially the ES, if it closes below the 4,400, that could be an overnight low. Okay. So here, there's not much going on. We'll just have to see if flows pick up. It's 12 Eastern. So it's just a question of seeing how they decide to rip this into the close, right? If they're going to rip it or if they're going to sell it. But clearly, it's not a move that is 100% in sync. It's a move that you have to be a little bit careful. And the only things that are interesting here are fades if they set up. Again, fade weakness, fade failures, not fade for the sake of fading. Okay? Exactly. Let's see what gives. Hey, Mr. Deadlift, how's it going? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah, here you just have to be careful riding the long, right? Here you just have to be careful riding the long. But we discussed some interesting things in this update. Might want to go back. But the key thing is still that you've got a lot of those tech names that are heavy. So it's hard to trust the rip. Clearly, you don't want to fade it, but you'd be more partial to waiting for some kind of weakness. And also to just be careful because you've got a lot of headline risk on the table that could pop up anytime. So let's see what gives. I'll send out the recording and hopefully everything should be good for tomorrow. Okay. Wishing everybody an awesome one. Let's see what gives. Take care. All the best. Yeah, if you can watch the recording, we talked about some interesting things at the beginning. Shouldn't be too long. Okay, cool. I'll send it out now. Take care. Bye bye.